Ready?
Yep.
Okay. Welcome to Beard's Auto Shop and Lawnmower Service. Today what we're going to be doing is installing a set of pistons in this old style Kohler K662 motor. It's an obsolete motor. It was produced back in 1962 and I was just a little guy, only about 4 years old. We're rebuilding it for a gentleman, and it's been a little bit of a challenge since most of the parts are obsolete and we can't get hold of them. Some things have had to be custom made, and other parts and pieces have been sourced on eBay. But we're finally getting to the point to where we can do some assembly here and hopefully get this thing up and going for this guy. Well, what we're going to do here today is we finally got some pistons and connecting rods here, and I've taken the time and sized them and made sure everything fits. We've had the cylinder bores custom honed, so we've got proper clearance with the piston and the cylinder. We've got some new rings on this, and what we're going to do now is we're going to take and install a little bit of assembly lube. What I prefer to use on the bearings is a Clavite engine assembly lube. It tends to last with the bearing just a little bit longer than regular motor oil. You can see how nice and thick it is here. So we just take and put some around there. And then what we'll do is we'll take some other type of assembly lube, what I like to use, a little bit thinner. I take a 50-50 mixture of STP and Mobil 1 1550 motor oil, full synthetic. And what I'll do is I'll just take a little bit of it, pour it in my fingers like that, kind of lubricate the bore just a little bit. I'll take a little bit more here, and I'll take and put it around the rings and the piston skirt. You don't want to install these pieces dry because you have a dry startup and it's just metal to metal contact and it'll just wear things away like crazy in no time. So you want to put as much lubricant on this stuff as possible when you're getting going. Okay, now what we're going to use here, this is a piston ring installation tool here. You can see it's a band type clamp, and we'll also put a little bit of lube on that as well, so it's not dry. Kind of mimics our lubricated cylinder wall. Now, one thing I notice a lot of young fellows when they do use these tools, they tend to install them wrong. If you notice on this band, it has a couple of tabs here, and I'll show you in a minute when we put it with the with the compressor pliers. But if you notice, these clamps are offset. Okay, well, for these to work the best, these clamps need to be close to the cylinder deck surface as opposed to having them farther apart. If you have them far apart, you stand the chance of the bottom separating a little bit and your rings popping out before they go into the cylinder, and you stand a chance to break them. So what we do in this case, we'll take and put the band around here thusly, and then we take our pliers and we clamp them on here just like this. And then we can start this in the cylinder bore. Okay, need a rag to get some of the excess oil off my hands here. And then once I set it up here like this, I like to take a minute and I just lightly tap that ring compressor around so it's tight up against the deck surface of the block. And then I take inside here, I make sure my connecting rod is going in straight, and then you just take and pop it in just like that. Now, once you get it in here, you can reach in and hold the connecting rod and guide it onto the crankshaft just like that. Well, now what we're going to do is take the other half of the connecting rod cap here and put a little bit more of this Clavite lubricant on it. Smear it up really good. Now if you notice on these bearing inserts, there's a little bitty tang right here that sticks in, okay? That doesn't really hold it or prevent it from turning. It's just a locating notch is all it is. There's one like this on the bearing that I just installed on this crank, and what you do is when you put this cap on that connecting rod, you make sure that that locating tab is on the same side, okay? So this side with the rod is even, this side matches up on the rod that also has the notch. And in this case, this would go in like this, okay? Now what I need to do is I need to take my connecting rod bolts, and Kohler says I need to take and put a little bit of lubricant on the threads before I'd go to torque them down here. So you go ahead and put a little bit of lube on it. Okay, I just need to move my crank just a little bit there just to give me some clearance. Take the other connecting rod bolt, put a little bit more lubricant on it, put that down in there as well. Now once it's down in there, it gets to be, if you got big fingers, it's a little bit harder to get in there. I'll see if I can get this ratchet in here. Kind of get the bolt going. After a while you tend to get just enough oil and lubricant on your fingers there that it's kind of hard to make things move. You're just kind of slipping and sliding. Okay. Just a little bit more here. We can get that in where it's supposed to go. There we go. I just kind of like to snug them up a little bit, and then once I've got them snugged, then we'll take the torque wrench to it here. Now they recommend 35 foot-pounds on this particular one, and you'll notice I go fairly slow. Okay, you notice how it trips? Well, that tells me I'm right where I'm supposed to be. See if I got enough room I can get into that other one. Looks like I got just enough room. Okay, a little bit more here. There we go. That one's torqued. That cylinder is done. Alright, well, now what we're going to do is we're going to rotate the crank here just a little bit, and we're going to set ourselves up, and we're going to do the next cylinder, cylinder number 2. Basically the same deal as we did before. I'm going to take a little bit of Clavite bearing lubricant. Now these bearings, you're probably saying to yourself, what about your clearances and all that? Well, I've already spent the last couple of days checking all my clearances with a dial bore gauge and a micrometer, making sure I got everything right where it goes. I've checked the side clearance of the connecting rods. I even had to adjust them a little bit to get them where I wanted them. But everything's looking pretty good here. So once we get this motor together eventually, this thing should fire up and run for this guy and have a nice happy camper there. Okay, and then like I said, we put a little bit more assembly lube on the rings here. Now be careful when you're working around your piston rings, because they can be rather sharp And I'll tell you, when I was a young fellow working on engines just getting started, there was more than one time I've accidentally sliced a finger on a piston ring, so be careful when you're handling them. Okay, same thing here again. We'll loosen this up a little bit, our piston ring compressor. We still got a bunch of lube on this. Okay, put it on there. Squeeze her down nice and tight. We'll set this in the bore. And where's my trusty little hammer here? Make sure that's up there tight. Look in here, make sure the connecting rod's lined up with the crank. And boom, just pop it right into place. Here again, we can reach in here. Yeah. There we go. And go ahead and push the connecting rod into position. And here again, I'm looking down here against this bearing, and I'm noticing I do not see that locating groove or that locating notch on the bearing and the rod, so that tells me it's on the other side. So when I put this in, here again, here's that locating notch. That'll have to go down towards the bottom. So then I'll just set the cap in there. Take our rod bolts, put a little bit of lube on the rod bolts. There we go. Try and get them started. Like I said, after a while your fingers get so oily it's kind of hard to get things moving right. I gotta move it ahead just a little bit. Take and do that. Come on, I know you're right there somewhere. There we go. Try to get in a position to where you can watch what I'm doing without me blocking you. Okay, now I'll take my ratchet, see if I can get in here and kind of holding the socket so I can make it ratchet for me there a little bit. Run that one down. I still got a little bit to go on that other one. There we go. And like I was saying, when you're putting a motor together after you've mocked up all your parts and checked your clearances and stuff, when you're going together for the final assembly, don't skip on the lubricant, because that initial fire up is really crucial. And we're almost there. There's our 35 on that one. And we'll try one more here. And there's our 35 there. Okay. Now I'll take a ratchet and a socket. See if we can, whoops, see if we can spin this thing here. There we go. Turns nice and easy, has just a little bit of ring drag, which you're looking for. And as far as that short block, looks pretty good. I think it'll live. So until we get ready to put the next piece on, thanks for stopping by, and check out some of our other videos and see how we're coming. Maybe you'll learn something. Have a good day.